All right, today we're going to go over my system to scale your e-commerce business past $1 million a year in revenue with the help of virtual assistants. I'm Zach. I'm the founder of Talented. We place talent from the Philippines in 7- and 8-figure e-commerce businesses. This is a photo of me visiting my team in the Philippines last year, and this is a screenshot from Inventory Labs showing $3.2 million in revenue from the past 2 years. This whole system is without sacrificing good communication. Communication is a bare minimum for a good team, so this system shows you how to vet for that and avoid bad communication, bad English skills, without paying inflated agency markups where you pay the agency a couple $1,000s a month and they pay the talent a couple $100s a month. Without conducting endless interviews, this system vets in a way that is efficient for your time. Without talent that costs you more than they save, because we're hiring to generate an ROI, so we want someone that gets the best ROI. And without losing control of your business. We are delegating instead of outsourcing with this system. So if you've identified yourself as the bottleneck being the owner, the traditional path that most people take is to hire locally. Hire someone from their own state, their own country in the US. Obviously, this is very high cost with the cost of living in the US, but you do get greater control and you can even have like in-person meetings, which is pretty cool. But most people who decide not to go that way, usually the temporary fix that they assume is the right way is hiring a $2 an hour virtual assistant. Now, it's definitely cheap. $2 an hour is like $400 a month for full time, but you'll find very soon that the quality you get at that salary is pretty low, not a good value. So the path we'll talk about today in my system is building an overseas team. Now, the drawback being they're hard to find. There's a lot of vetting and a lot of background knowledge that is required to build a great team, but the benefit being they're very high value. You get someone great for a much lower price than what you would pay hiring locally in the US. Now, to start, who is this system actually for? If your business growth is limited by your time, we all have 24 hours in a day, but if you feel like your time is spent on those low value tasks all day and you don't have time for the high value stuff, this is when hiring virtual assistants would come in handy. We start in the $1 million a year range for revenue because assume like a 10 to 20% margin, that's when it starts becoming worth your time to delegate to overseas labor. Or if your to-do list keeps growing no matter how hard you work, especially with a business like e-commerce selling, the more you sell, the more back-end repetitive stuff that comes along with it. Or if you know delegating is the answer, but you don't know where to start. The overseas job market is a lot different than just making an Indeed post, and there's a lot of stuff that you have to consider that you wouldn't for, say, hiring locally. Or if you don't even know what a good virtual assistant would look like, this system will help you figure out the standards to have in your vetting. This is also for you if you've tried hiring and couldn't find what you needed. Say you got overwhelmed with the amount of job applications you got, and you're like, I don't even know how to vet these people, or you vetted some and you're like, this is just not people that I want to work with. And finally, if you've hired a cheap VA, maybe $2 an hour one yourself, and you ended up spending more time fixing their mistakes than the value they provided you. This is the same system we use for all of our clients. Here's some testimonials we've gotten lately. This is one from Ed saying that Carlota is an absolute beast. Now, here's what I think most people get wrong about hiring from the Philippines or hiring a virtual assistant in general. First, that virtual assistants are only for basic low-level tasks, and that's all they can ever do for you. But for me, when I remove the virtual assistant label, I see my team as equals, as someone who could, with enough time, build up to learn these skills that I have. Most people think cheaper means a better ROI. So like by going for the $2 an hour VA, you get the highest value out of it. But in reality, you need to find that sweet spot of value of like where you're paying a good salary and also getting the most return out of it. So for me, if I'm hiring for someone with no direct experience in the role, this is like the $3 to $5 an hour range. If I'm hiring for experience, I look in the $6 to $8 an hour range. Some people think that hiring more VAs means you get more output. And while this is true over time, you see a lot of the spray and pray approach, like hiring 10 people and then firing 9. But I think that if you're vetting properly, all virtual assistants that you hire could be good, just not all at once. They need the coaching and the leadership to get there. Some people think that hiring a virtual assistant is a set it and forget it model. They see it as outsourcing instead of delegating, when even Michael Jordan needs a coach to be at his best. People think that you need to hire someone with years of experience for them to do well for you, but in our vetting process, we really focus on character and attitude, because I think you can teach someone skills. You can teach someone how to do some of the things you do, but you can't teach them values. You can't teach attitude. You can't teach character. Obviously, experience has its place, but I think that most people assume that they need to only look for someone that has years of experience in the role, and I just don't think that that's accurate. And finally, that you should just hire the first VA with decent English. In our vetting process that we'll talk about today, English is a bare minimum for a good team, and there's a lot more things past that you have to vet for in order to find a good virtual assistant that's going to work out for you long term. All right, so let's jump into the overview of the process. So first, you're going to start off with the pre-hiring, clarity on what it is you're looking for, what resources you're going to expend. Then once you start getting applications, figuring out how to actually vet them with the 4-level vetting protocol. Starts off with the initial application, moves into the written response, the initial interview, and the follow-up interview. Once you've hired someone, then we start off with the training, what it looks like on day 1, the 4-week onboarding, and then upskilling them after that. Then the most important one, the one I can talk about forever, long-term leadership. Starting off with how to be an active leader, the principle of leadership serves, and how to create a culture. Now, to start off, before you even start writing a job posting, we have to figure out what it is we're hiring for. Now, we do this through our task audit. And by the way, if you want access to this whole Notion document, it's linked down below for you to follow along. All right, so let's hop into this task audit sheet here. So basically, this is a way for you to figure out the tasks that you actually get done in a day, so you can see which ones are gonna be the first ones to delegate. So say, for example, in an e-commerce business like Amazon Arbitrage, one of the tasks that you're gonna have a lot of time on is gonna be sourcing. So say on a Monday, maybe spend 6 hours a day on sourcing, and then we're gonna rank it by the skill level that is required. Now, a lot of people will delegate off these very important tasks like sourcing, but the skill level for that is super high. So those are the ones I'm gonna be delegating last. Then purchasing, so actually checking out these leads, I'd say an hour a day if I'm spending 6 hours sourcing. Skill level for that, I would say is low. It doesn't take, it's high trust required, but in terms of this like steps by step of how to actually get it done, the skill level is not very high. Repricing is, I'd say another hour. If we're looking at like a Monday, maybe I spend like do a 2-hour repricing session. Skill level for that, also pretty high. You need a lot of experience to know how to do that right. Inventory sheets, maybe another hour on a Monday. If I'm doing like an hour's worth of purchasing, it's probably an hour's worth of inventory sheets. I would say that's also a pretty low skill level required. Communications with the prep center, say half an hour. Skill level, I would say, is medium. You have to, you could teach someone it, but context is required on how to do it properly because you don't want to have any issues there. And then you would just complete this for the whole week, figuring out what tasks you do. And then once we have gathered the ones that are the highest time commitment and the lowest skill level, those are gonna be the ones to delegate off first. Let's head back into the sheet here and we're gonna go over the pre-hiring. So this is how to actually get applicants to your job posting. So first off, we have to get clear on the responsibilities that they're gonna be responsible for, which is what we just figured out with the task audit. I tend to start with very narrow responsibilities in the beginning because I want it to be clearly define the value they're going to be bringing to me, and then we can expand on that over time as they gain more context. I never hire for a virtual assistant. I always have some sort of job title, whether it be an admin assistant, a checkout specialist, like defined roles in the company. Then figuring out, getting clear on the ideal candidate, what the perfect person would look like for me, because this is gonna be pretty similar from company to company, but you might have values that another company doesn't have, or maybe you're hiring for a more creative role and you need someone who can think outside the box, or you're hiring for a very data heavy role and you need someone with keen attention to detail. Then we have to get clear on our expectations and managing them properly. Some people will look for the jack of all trades, master of none, someone who can do literally everything in their business for $2 an hour, but we have to make it clear what we're looking for and be realistic about it. And then we move over to the resources we're going to expend. So first off, the full offer. So we only hire for full-time roles, and so an offer would include the base salary, PTO holidays, and any sort of other bonuses that go along with it. For the base salary, like I said, $3 to $5 an hour for no experience, 6 to 8 for direct experience. And that's just a broad range. You can, play around with that, see what works best for you, but that's what I found to work best for our clients. Then the PTO plan, so are you gonna do unlimited PTO with approval? Are you gonna do 1 to 2 days a month accruing. And then holidays for our clients at the beginning of the year, we always send out a calendar. It's basically the same amount of holidays as the US, but shifted dates, different, they celebrate different things than we do in the US. Then what kind of bonuses are you gonna offer? Are you gonna have a 13th month pay? If you haven't hired from the Philippines before, that might be an unfamiliar concept. It's basically like a Christmas bonus, prorated for the first year, equal to 1 month's salary. It's required locally in the Philippines, but since we're hiring as overseas contractors, it's not technically required. I offered for my team, and several of our clients do, but some don't. And then performance bonuses. Do they have some way of achieving more if they exceed your expectations? All right, and then we're gonna start writing the actual job posting. Now, a lot of people will just type in everything we just went over into ChatGPT and just paste that into wherever they're posting it, but then you look like every other job posting out there. And I want it so that when someone reads this job posting, it speaks to that ideal candidate we defined. I don't want to just be them checking another box where it's like, yep, filled out this app, did 5 applicants, here's another one that I did for the day. I want it to be like one where they read it and they're like, okay, this is like one I'm really serious about. Not only does it push someone through the process further, they're a lot more committed to going through all our vetting steps because they know that from that initial job posting, it's like, speaks to them, it spoke to them. All right, and then we have to launch the actual campaign now that we've built our job posting. So figuring out where we're gonna get applicants to see this job posting, how we're gonna drive the traffic. So, what LinkedIn groups are we gonna post in? What Facebook groups, Discord groups where people are gonna be hanging out that are ideal candidate? Are we gonna run Facebook ads? Are we gonna make a LinkedIn post? What platforms are we gonna post on? Upwork, Online Jobs, Fiverr, Indeed. Figuring out all those details and then launching the campaign. All right, so now that you've launched the job posting, you'll get hundreds, if not thousands of applicants coming in, and we have to figure out a way to vet them in an efficient way that doesn't take up a bunch of our time and fast so that the process from start to finish moves quick. For me, this process takes under 14 days. So we start off with the initial application, how someone is actually applying to the job. For me, I use Video Ask. There's a lot of other similar platforms out there, similar softwares. Basically just a way for you to get their information, but then also have a video response portion. That's very important for my vetting. So we get the base info of like speed tests, English tests, resume, that kind of stuff. And then the end, my favorite part, is the video response. So we have 2 questions, and in under 30 seconds, they have to answer it. Now, there's a lot of benefits to this. And first of all, natural filter, because 70% or something of people just quit right there. Then a lot of people will have ChatGPT answers. They'll, start off with like, I'm particularly proud of blah, blah, just those words where you just know they didn't think of it themselves. And then if they made it past those 2 things where they actually completed it, they didn't use ChatGPT, I can see their quality of answers. And then more importantly, it's a pre-interview. I don't have to hop on an interview with every single person because I can already know what to expect and disqualify people from there. But it's like, if they do good on this video response, I know the interview is probably going to go good as well. So if they pass that section, move on to the written response. This is a simple Google form, takes like 10, 15 minutes, and it's all mock scenarios. So like putting them in situations they might find themselves in. Like, let's say your team is having a really rough week. How would you lift the spirits of the people around you? Again, great ChatGPT filter because, when it's just right there for them to copy and paste, they'll just ask ChatGPT what it says, and it's, again, really obvious to see which ones they answered themselves and which ones they did not. Then if they pass that section, we're moving on to the initial interview. Now, a lot of people will have these very generic, boring interviews. For me, I have to make the interview as close to a conversation as possible. A question that an applicant has prepared an answer for is a bad question. So we start off with having them walk me through their resume, then very focused questions like following up about those things, talking about their recent role, what kind of things they did, how other people would perceive them, then moving into like character questions, what kind of person they are, but in like a, not a backwards, but like a slick way. So it's not just like asking, what kind of person are you? And I would never ask a question. I would never ask a question like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Then I talk about what they see for their future and how this role would fit into their career path. Then we always have a follow-up interview, because I've gotten to follow-up interviews and decided not to hire someone, so I always have the follow-up now. It's usually a 3-man interview, so if it's for my own team, I have my team captain, Christelle, on it, because I want to make sure it's someone she could see herself actually working with, but also because I've had a lot of time with this person already, so I might be blinded by some things, or like, sunk cost fallacy, where I'm like, okay, well, I've already, they've already made it this far, they're definitely good to go. So I have her hop on and be like, give the green light or the red light. If this is an interview for a client, then we'll have the client on the call so they can ask them questions as well, ones I missed. And if we're hiring for experience and it's something I'm not experienced in, this is when the client would ask very skill-focused questions on the applicant's experience. Also, it's a great way for the applicant to interview the client, because I'm trying to build long-term relationships, and a lot of agencies will just they do these like one-to-one placements where it's like, yep, you're going over here, and I want someone who is actually committed to working with this client, this business owner, for the long term. So that's what we get done in the follow-up interview. Once you actually have a offer letter sent, an accepted offer letter, we start with the training, how to train your new virtual assistant hire. So from day one, you have to set clear expectations. For my team, I just give them a straight up expectations sheet of like, here's what I am expecting from you. I have to set the tone very clear from the start of like, here's how things are gonna go. I can't act one way on day one and then day two totally switch up. Like if I'm gonna be micromanaging from day one, that's how it's gonna be the rest of the time. So it's very important to set the tone, that first impression of the actual working relationship. I always have documented processes prepared. I'm a big fan of Notion, but you can use Google Docs. I also have Looms, but having something to where we're not just like, all right, let's hop on a Zoom and figure it out. I want to come in with something prepared for them, and for them to be at their best, and for me to do it in an efficient way. After day one, we move into the onboarding. This is usually a 4-week process for my team. Depends on the role, depends on the company. But what I did in the beginning was do an information dump, and it ended up just overwhelming them, and they weren't very effective. Like just giving them all the documents and being like, all right, here, figure it out. But I found it very valuable to do what I call an information trickle. Now I do this with the training, but I also do this with even like Slack channels. So it's like, I'm only opening things up one at a time for them, and they have to pass this section before they can move on to the next. And I do that through this training pyramid here. So I start off with the foundational things that they have to know in order to understand the concept. Now, the wider you build this base, the higher you can build that pyramid. Then we move on to concepts, the actual process, software to make it more efficient, and then that feedback loop, keep that going. The feedback loop goes both ways. Me telling them how they can be better, how they can improve in a non-emotional way, and then them telling me how I can be better as a leader. Again, setting the tone from day one, I have to make it very clear to them that I need your feedback on how I can be better, how I can improve my training, what parts you're stuck on, where you think I could be doing better so you can be at your best. Once the training's over, you move into the long-term, forever leadership. The part that as I mentioned, is my favorite part and the one I spend all my time on now with my team. First principle is going to be active leadership. Again, as we spoke about in the beginning, people will hire from the Philippines, hire a virtual assistant, and leave them be. They think that, they got it handled. But I think you have to be an active leader to make your team at their best. So the first thing I do is share context. I don't keep people in silos of their one task and keep them there forever. I want someone to have more context of all the things in the business, all the parts of the business. I even go as far as being very transparent with the numbers of the business so that they have more context on how their inputs are creating outputs. It's like the more they know about the business, the more they understand how their tasks, their responsibilities impact the rest of the business, the other people. They can make better decisions as a result and think more like I do. Then I lead by example. I'm not hiring so that I can lay on the beach all day and not work. I'm hiring so that I can scale the business and get more out of my time, so my time is spent on the most valuable tasks. Then checking in regular intervals. So I have a certain cadence. Right now, this is like daily Slack, every other day on Slack, just like How you doing? How's it going? Is everything going well? Then we have a weekly game night where we just hop on for 30 minutes and like play an online game just for some team building. And then we do bi-weekly one-on-ones where it's like a pulse check on seeing how things are going, what's going well, what's not going well, what I can do for them. Then we have our monthly meetings. There's 2 of those. There's our recap and goal setting. And then there's our KPI meeting, going over all our metrics, our key performance indicators. Then the next concept we'll talk about is leadership serves. It's my belief that as a leader, it is your job to make your talent to be at the very best they can be, instead of the other way. They're not there for you, you're there for them as a leader. The first way I do this is by removing roadblocks. Always asking them, what can I do to help you be at your best? What's getting in your way? Is there some software you could use, or is this part really challenging and we could get that roadblock out of the way? One way to do this is by protecting their time. So I'm hiring in the first place because my time, some tasks are not worth my time anymore. As someone stays with my company, I need to do the same thing with them. Their time becomes more valuable. So if they're spending their time on these lower value tasks that I could delegate and it's taking away from their high value stuff, maybe it's through automation or maybe it's through hiring a new team member, then I have a clear growth plan for them. So like setting some sort of future, they have a vision that they can fit into, whether this is through performance bonuses, seeing how as they do better, they get more literally just money, or seeing how they can grow into a leadership role or greater responsibilities. And then me as a leader, providing them the resources they need to get there. All right, and then culture creation. So this starts off with recognition, either public or private. So public recognition would be like our daily wins channel in Slack, where we post like cases we've won or reimbursements we've gotten so that everyone can see as a team. Or private, just even, I do this all the time, just simple stuff as like, this situation you handled really well, or I'm impressed with the way you completed this task. It doesn't have to be some like big thing. It just be casual messages like that. I find really go a long way in creating that culture. Other thing I'll talk about is life coaching. If you made it to the point in your business where you're able to delegate and hire, you obviously have some sort of knowledge that is valuable. I have to be there for them as a life coach, not just as a leader specific in work, because I think that the better I can make them as a human, as a person, then they'll perform better in work. So this is doing things like a health initiative. So I'm always posting my steps. We're always posting in chat. We have a chat channel on Slack to like share things about our lives, and they're always asking for like audiobook requests, podcast requests. So just trying to be better as people, I think, creates that culture for everyone to be at their best. That also goes along with working together. So I make it clear that we're all on the same team. Our goals are aligned with each other, not against each other. We're not competing. So I make it in their best interest to work together and build up, 1 + 1 = 4, not competing against each other. Along with that, results ownership. My admin Danielle last year said to me, she feels like it's her business too. And I think that's really from this culture that I've created. And a big part of that is owning the results, which also ties over into sharing context. When they know the outcome of what they're doing, they take ownership of the result and how to get there, rather than just clocking in and completing what they need to do for the day. All right, so if you allow me, I'll give my pitch on what we can do for your e-commerce business. So as we went over today, we have the pre-hiring, the vetting, the training, and the long-term leadership. Now, I can only do so much for you in the training and leadership portion. A lot of that's on you, but I can help you with the pre-hiring and the vetting. So that's exactly what we do for our clients at Talented. So we launched a full-scale hiring campaign across our network. This includes all of the platforms I talked about before, like LinkedIn ads, Facebook ads, and even our virtual assistant newsletter. Then taking that and running every applicant that we get through our 4-level vetting protocol, presenting you only with the top 3 candidates, interviews done, so all you have to do is hop on that follow-up interview. After that, we'll provide you the training documents needed, especially if it's your first time hiring a virtual assistant. We have a lot of useful stuff there for you to be the leader that you need to be, and then providing lifetime guidance and support ongoing for you to be the leader your team needs. And this is the same system we've used for some of our clients here. Ferris, who's an Amazon seller, Chris, e-commerce seller doing like 8 figures a year, and Steve, an Amazon seller doing 7 figures a year. So if you want to skip right to hiring great candidates without having to go through all these interviews with people you won't even hire, book a call below to see if we're a good fit. In just 2 weeks, you could be interviewing your future CEO. If you're not ready to hire yet, that's fine too. I have a YouTube channel. You can scroll all the way down to the bottom if you're on the website and click the YouTube link. If you're on YouTube already, hit the subscribe button below, and I'll see you in the next one.